Hello, everyone.
Hello, Erin. How are
Hello, Robby.
you?
I'm good. I'm good. Hello to everyone who is. I think that I'm going to put it on. I don't know if it's on speaker view, but I'm going to put it on gallery view for right now, so people see both of us.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Erin Chandler, and welcome to another author spotlight with Rabbit House Press. I'm with Robby Henson, whose book Loudwater comes out tomorrow.
It
Published,
does, yeah.
it's published by Down and Out Books, not published by Rabbit House Press, but we talk to authors with, as we're wont to do with from everything books we love. Um, Now, I want to introduce Robby as to say that he is a good friend of mine, and he is a wonderful documentarian and filmmaker. And this is his first novel, and it is a brilliant novel. But he is, he wrote and directed The Badge with Billy Bob Thornton, and he wrote and directed Pharaoh's Army with Chris Christopherson and Patricia Clarkson, who I love. And who else was in that?
Chris Cooper.
Cooper.
Yeah, Chris Cooper, who got both Patricia and Chris were rewarded with Academy Awards for their work after Pharaoh's Army, but they are
Oh,
terrific
they're,
actors.
they're amazing. You work with so many wonderful people, and there's going to be so much to talk about. But I want to mention that you're born and raised in Kentucky, born and
I
raised
am, yeah.
in
Yeah.
Danville, right?
Down here in Danville, Boyle County, yes. Yeah.
And went away early and got your MFA, went to New York and went to the Tisch School,
I
correct?
did, yeah, and I lived in New York for 16 years and did some hard time, in those city streets for 16 years. And then I
Right
moved
at
to
the time to
St.
do it in the New York City streets too, right?
Yeah, that was the 80s and 90s. And then in 96 I moved to Los Angeles. With the reason being I did have a writing assignment job with Norman Jewison, who's directed
Yes, yes.
Jesus Christ Superstar and
Yeah,
everything, Fiddler on
yeah,
the Roof and
yes.
stuff. So I went
Wow.
out to LA in 96. But like we sort of lived in LA for a while and then we've come back, to Kentucky. And likewise, I did that too.
Yeah, which I absolutely love, that we went away for about, I would think I was gone for 25 years. Well, I left when I was like 8 and then came back for college and then left again. But so I wasn't raised completely in Kentucky, but from Kentucky nevertheless. And I can't fail to mention that in this very cabin, you did a documentary about my grandfather, Happy Chandler.
I did. As a matter of fact, I didn't think to bring this up, but I have your grandfather on my wall here.
Oh
Uh,
my God.
Here's a picture of me. That's me with hair
Oh my God.
holding a clapperboard, and happy for making the documentary. And then we shot. I did do this documentary called Roads Home, and part of it was shot right where you're sitting now. When
Isn't
Happy
that
was in
amazing?
his log cabin, yeah.
Where life goes. And that year was, I was in LA at that time. That was
I think it
93-ish,
was 85 or 6, I think.
85 or 6. Okay. I would might have been at UK. I might have been like in the house at my say my grandparents, because I was at UK then. Oh my
Okay.
God,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Well, this is so exciting. And so let's just jump right in and talk about Loudwater, which is just an amazing book, and I have so many questions to ask, but I think the best way to start is to read from another author what he wrote about this, your first novel, which it says, this is Charles Edward Pogue, screenwriter of The Fly, Dragonheart, and Psycho 3. Robby Henson's prose crackles with the raw-boned, rough-edged hardness of the Eastern Kentucky landscape, intensely capturing the desperate victims seeking to escape its unforgiving hold, whether through an act of redemption or an act of revenge, a visceral Southern Gothic noir, which I can't tell you how thrilling it is as a writer to read things like this. I was hoping that we could. Do you have any anything picked out that you can read? Just a minute of.
I'd have to maybe thumb through and find it, but I could do that. Yeah.
If we read just it is it is so so strong and amazing. And what's so also crazy about Yumi is it's set in Breathitt County, and my great grandfather is
Okay.
from Breathitt County.
Okay.
And
Wow.
did you know that?
I
And
did not know that. So there's all those
I'm reading
connections.
this, and it is
Yeah.
so well. I just recently went to Hazard for the first time because
Okay.
looking at Hindman Settlement School and wanting to do a residency there. And I, found out doing the book that I'm doing, Bluegrass Sons, researching the Bryant side of my family, that Pommy and Daddy Fred, I don't have the pictures here, Laura and Fred Bryant are from Quicksand.
Okay. Oh,
And
which I
I'm
mentioned.
Yes, a bunch of times you mentioned quicksand, but I mean the excerpts are just, I mean, the whole book is so strong. And so it is, we did a play together recently, and Robby does a program with incarcerated playwrights.
I
He
did.
also
The program is called Voices Inside, and it's centered at North Point, which is a prison near Danville. And it's an outreach program of Pioneer Playhouse, where I'm also the artistic director of the Summer Stock Theater Pioneer Playhouse. And we do a prison outreach called Voices Inside, where we go into North Point and we teach performance skills and we teach writing skills to the incarcerated.
to the incarcerated, and it's the play, the plays that we did was, what was the play?
And then you were able to join us as an actress when we worked with Antagonist Productions of Lexington to stage 6 inmate authored plays just this March. And we pulled you, Erin, into the play called Freedom Feather by Matthew Mendoza, who's incarcerated in Texas. And you were wonderful as perhaps one of the victims of the character in the play.
And it's just, so I knew you knew this world, but I
Yeah.
want to ask you where the characters come from. But do you have something you might want to read?
Yeah, I did find it. Actually, it is, sort of the moment when Crit is able to get out on parole, and he has been
Crit is the
incarcerated.
main character, is kind of explain to us. The main character is Crit
Hopewell, who is serving an 18-year sentence for just being a badass. He, beat a man nearly to death with a crowbar when he was 16 years old, and he's been in and out of prisons. And there's really no light at the end of his tunnel, except that he did discover something he found a passion for, which was creating art behind bars. So he sort of became a painter behind bars. There was an arts behind bars instructor who's kind of a nun who swears like a truck driver, teaches art behind bars, and
got dreadlocks, and she's
and dreadlocks, and
yeah.
she loves Bootsy Collins, and she gets Crit to sort of refine his technique and really dedicate himself to painting. So it is a story about a person who's done a lot of bad things, and there's no light at the end of his tunnel, but through the art of through the means of creation and being creative, he maybe finds some way of dealing with the tremendous guilt and the tremendous burden that's on his shoulders. So so the passage I'm going to read is, he's finally released after 18 years. And would you like me to do that?
Please.
I've never read this, Erin. This is the very first time I've read my very first novel to anyone. So
I am so excited. Well, you know what? It's just,
well, you don't have to be too excited, but
I am so excited. I'm so excited reading it, but it's no surprise that the words and is so poetic and beautiful because you've been writing screenplays and plays and doing it. So,
I will. Oh, and then let me say that, this novel, kind of the original story was a screenplay that myself and the co-writer Charles Souse, who lives in Breathitt County and lives in Jackson, we had wanted to make this as a screenplay. So that was a screenplay story we were kicking around, but the novel kind of really takes off from the screenplay in a lot of different ways. And but it's kind of the source material was a screenplay that Charles Souse and I were kicking around for a number of years, and it did not get made. And then
with the
COVID
same
happened.
characters. I mean, it's so cinematic with Crit and his brother Chrome, who is just I mean, it's just, and then they live, just so I'll tell
Yeah.
whoever might be listening to us and reading the book Loudwater, which is what we're talking about. He gets out of prison and he moves into this motel right off the rolling hills, right off the I always want to say freeway, but it's not the freeway. What do you
The
call
main
it?
the main road into the town of Jackson. Yeah.
Down to down. And it's just, I mean, just where every motel where you've seen like just a stretch of land in between the rolling hills and the mountains, it's just, I mean, it's perfect. And then the people, the characters, and Lenny, what is her name?
Liddy is his
Liddy.
ex-wife that
No,
he
it's
does
not
not
his
get along with.
ex-wife, but the girl that lives in the room next to him.
Oh, is Renee.
Renee.
Yeah.
And did you know where did you come up with her? Did you know someone like her?
No, and that was kind of a new character. The screenplay took off in a different direction, and I decided to make the novel, where the central relationship was about the crazy, crack smoking gal who lived next door to him, whether or not there was going to be some connection where Crit could perhaps help her in some way. So that
Right,
became, in the novel, that became a central story. It was not that way in the screenplay, but
right.
the novel is very much, found a life of its own in a world of its own in a way.
But you know these people. I mean,
Yeah.
I know her. I know how she moves, the way you wrote it, and
There was a little girl named Renee who lived in the house behind us when I grew up. So I kind of, a lot of
oh,
the names,
really?
yeah, a lot of
Yeah,
the names kind of resonate from my past. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, go ahead and read us it.
Okay. And as I said, this is Crit, when he finally is paroled out. It happened whippet fast. 36 hours later, Crit stood in the hub with 3 plastic bags clutched to his chest. He'd been told to stand and wait and watch for a signal from the control center officer 100 yards distant, then to start walking. But April winds gusted a dust cloud up from the softball field, and Crit's left eye stung and watered from it. The officer appeared to beckon. Crit blinked cloudiness away to be sure. Free man walking, and an inmate behind Crit chirped. He had lived amongst 1,000 strangers, but in an unpeopled place. The wind blew and rattled the chain on the flagless flagpole. The ringing in his ears escalated like a sandblaster in his head and pushed up his unease. He walked a steady cadence, right foot, left foot. What troubled Crit to his marrow core was not that there, beyond the nearing gate, lay sky and clouds and mud so very different from the dark mud he had wallowed in for nearly 14 years. Nor was he trembling before an unknown future. He had no future. This he knew without a doubt. What he felt now was each propulsive and trembling stride forward carried him backward into his own defeated, dreaded, and worthless past. Sort of a dark moment.
Sort of a dark moment of his life. He's in prison. Yeah, it happened when he found out he was going to be paroled, and he is just a rough character, and still with a lot of, you have so much empathy for him, or I did, and for
Good. Yeah.
I mean, a lot. I mean, I really like it, and just the circumstances that they grew up with, and
Yeah.
it's just it's very real. And so it's
And,
Daniel.
oh, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, is Danville a lot like Hazard?
Not so much, no. Danville has Center College, but um, it's very much Kentucky, if you scratch the surface. Um,
I mean, for sales, I mean, up the street.
yeah,
It's like where we slept, just up the street, up this street at the gas
right,
station. I could see Crit and Chrome and all of them.
yeah,
And it is just scratch the surface.
yeah.
And now how far away is Danville from Hazard?
Well, it's we're below Lexington, about 35 miles. Hazard and Jackson is 2 hours, 2.5 hours up
Okay.
in the mountains. So I do set it up there in the mountains more so than around the Versailles Danville locale. But actually, um, part of our theater Pioneer Playhouse has an RV park, and I will say that it was an RV park that used to be filled with tourists, but now because affordable housing is so hard to find, it now our trailer park is filled with struggling working class, and I constantly sometimes do run into drug problems in our RV park, and
Right,
it's
right.
anywhere and everywhere, including 100 yards down the road here from me. So
Right. And the way and the Pakistani people that own the gas station in the book. I mean,
yeah, actually, we do have the Pakistani owned gas stations and liquor stores in Danville, so that's kind of a thing. Do you?
right, where that came from.
It seems to be very much a Kentucky thing. So
And a Kentucky thing, it reminds me a little bit of how excited I was to, because I was on the West Coast really pretty much most of my life,
yeah,
even though being from Kentucky. But it's like, and so I'm still getting to know and still excited about the mountains of Kentucky and the history and my history of Kentucky and my ancestry, and then to find out this side of when I would talk to Larry Bryant, my
yeah,
mom's cousin Larry, and Larry's like, oh yeah, and he was telling about them being from Breathitt and from Quicksand, and then I drove to Quicksand, and my great great grandfather died, he was an alcoholic and hit by a train, and
yeah,
his father had murdered his mother while she like still ran in. This is like three greats away.
yeah,
Ran in. They had broken up. He brought right happened in Quicksand, and she went to like to the town over. He brought some coffee beans, and she said to
yeah,
her dad, who was a teacher at the junior college, and Isaac Baker, like I have like all these, Larry was giving me all this information from that things. Um, told and she said, Daddy, don't let him in. And she said, and the Isaac Baker turned around, Clarissa was her name. Clarissa Baker would have been
okay.
my great, great, great grandmother. And he ran in, stabbed her to death while she was nursing a baby.
Oh my
He got thrown
goodness.
in jail. It was around her people, and
Yeah.
they busted him out of jail and hung him, which I imagine happened. And so yeah,
Which relative was that?
that was my Fred Bryant is my great grandfather who ended up running, like opening the Shriners Hospital.
Oh
Fred,
my
like
goodness.
he's got pictures with Pappy. He took his
Yeah,
whole family away from Quicksand and his relatives and brought him to Lexington when he was like,
yeah,
first he worked at the circus, and he ran lights at a circus, and he was just a very self-made
right.
man. And then and moved everybody, but his dad was an alcoholic and died when they left under a train. But his dad's dad was the one that murdered his
Wow.
grandmother, who was Clarissa.
Yeah, well, I have some of that too, because actually, um, my great, let's see, my great grandmother killed a neighbor over a barking dog
Oh,
here in
how?
Danville in like 1911. Uh,
Your
and
great grandmother?
yeah,
Oh my God. And how did she
I
kill
guess the
him?
dog was barking too loud, and people start,
Whoa, with a gun.
yeah.
Ooh.
And I think they decided not to send her to prison for some reason. I guess they decided in 1911 that, who knows what they thought, but yeah.
You know,
But
yeah.
I did hear that that was my great grandmother. So I heard that my grandfather was not able to marry the gal that he wanted to marry because the family would have nothing to do with the family that, the mother had
The
killed.
mother who killed the neighbor. Is this on your mom's side or your dad's side?
My dad's side of the family.
Oh my God. Isn't that
And
crazy?
actually, we're very good friends with some people on the other side of that story who their great uncle was killed, and um, luckily, instead of starting a Hatfields and McCoys with our
Right,
friends.
right. Oh my God. Isn't that crazy? There's just so, and it's not that long ago, like the 1800s
Right.
is not that long ago that it's just, it's
Yeah.
you start digging up this stuff but it's such a rich, place to write about. And what I was about to say, what, is when I was excited reading, My Father, the Pornographer,
Yeah.
that book from the other Kentucky writer. Do you know?
No, I don't. Yeah.
He's also went to LA and he became a very successful screenwriter and writer. And I just all of a sudden I went blank with his name, but he writes just eloquently a memoir.
Okay.
My Father, the Pornographer. His dad was a pornographer, but about Eastern Kentucky. And if you're looking it up there, I'll look it up. Oh my God.
I'll look it up. Yeah.
Um,
My father, the pornographer. D- 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 Chris Ofut.
yes, you don't know
Okay.
Chris Offutt?
I don't know.
Oh my God, he would love you and you
Oh, and he
love
did
him.
film stuff out in LA also.
Yes, he did a lot of film stuff out in LA, and I met him at the Carnegie Center, and he's
Okay.
an amazing, you've got to get that memoir.
Okay.
But the way he writes about running up and down those hills of Eastern Kentucky reminds me very much of your
Yeah.
thing. So good. So when did you start writing the book?
It was really during COVID. You know, I think I had a little bit more downtime because I run a theater, Pioneer Playhouse, but we had decided to, instead of doing a full season, to do a very small season that COVID summer. And I might have been teaching at UK, which I do part time.
Yeah,
I might have been teaching Zoom instead of going into class. So I had a lot of time in my office. And so when was that COVID? It was like
2020.
2020. Yeah, 2020. I
Like
started
almost
writing, and
3 years.
yeah,
Changing
3 years. And
screenplay
the
into drama.
title came from a Morris Manning poem. Do you know Morris
I
Manning, who's a
do. I love
poet? Yeah.
him.
I don't have the poet in front of me, but he did use that particular term, loud water, to describe a creek that was full of rain. And I think that might have even given me the idea to perhaps have Crit, my main character, also suffer from tinnitus. Is that how you say it? Tinnitus from a prison yard injury, to the ear.
So it
So
reads like
I
loud
did.
water.
I saddled him with um, you know, not being able to hear very well. All he wants to do is paint. There is this kind of grinding echo that haunts him, maybe filled with all the bad things he's ever done in his life. It's part of his tinnitus in his ear. And so he always hears this kind of like loud water in a creek after a 4-day rain, in his
Right,
ear.
right, right. Exactly. Which was beautiful to hear that that's where the name came from.
Yeah. A Morris Manning
I have
poem.
a little bit of that in
Okay.
my left ear,
Does
and I
it
was
sound like
thinking
loud
about it. It's
water?
like, "Meow." No, a little bit of a little bit of the ringing. I mean, not ringing. It's like
Yeah.
Woody Allen. Is it ringing? Yeah, ringing and buzzing. Ringing and buzzing. Yeah, it's like
Um,
um
yeah.
yeah,
So, but it was during COVID, and it was also asking my question: am I going to just, during this time, am I going to write another screenplay that may or may not, get made? I I probably am lucky that I've had 5 feature films made, but I've probably written 45 screenplays, maybe 50
wow.
screenplays, and only,
Wow.
5 have been made. So there's a real gamble when one writes a spec script, is what they're called, that they will be made or won't be made. And this business a little bit too. So
As an actress and a little bit of an independent film producer, but not as a screenwriter. I did work on a screenplay with Nick Cassavetes, I told you.
that
And
must have been fun. Yeah, you did tell me that story. Yeah.
yeah, but I can't imagine writing, because I've written plays and produced a lot of theater, that I'm really like, if I write a play, I want to put it up or do a reading. If we're rehearsing, I went to Playhouse West, like we talked about forever. If we're rehearsing something forever, I want to put it up, even if it's for 2 weeks, I don't
Right.
want to just, and now the same with writing. It's like, if I write something, I want to put it up. I don't want to just, so that would be incredibly frustrating to be a screenwriter and just be sending
And
things
keep
out.
writing screenplays that perhaps don't get made, even if they were good. Um,
Right.
and I always thought that the source screenplay for Loud Water was a good screenplay, because it did have the central character being an incarcerated artist, who wants to change his DNA through the act of creating. And so I always sort of believed in that story. And I actually am so pleased that I was able to finish it. And the way that I found a publisher was just the way that almost anybody can do, and maybe a lot of people do, which is I Googled how to sell a crime novel. And what popped up, it said, well, you should send it to these 35 publishers. And I did send it to 35 publishers, and all of them said, either you were not taking unsolicited submissions, now we're not reading, we're not, no. A few said no. um Only one said no, but maybe talk to us in 6 months. And I think I kept emailing them every 3 months, and it kind of opened the door. And that was Down and Out books, which
Yes,
chose
yes.
and finally said, yes, we will publish this.
And
And
they
I'm so
did
happy
an
that they are.
amazing job. I mean, it's a beautiful book, and it's available tomorrow
Yeah,
everywhere.
tomorrow is the
Everywhere.
opening, or the release date is
The
tomorrow. So
release
that's
date is
cool.
tomorrow,
Yeah.
and then everybody can get it on Amazon and bookstores and everything. You're doing a reading, by the way, at two bookstores in Kentucky here.
Yes.
One Friday night, A Likely Story in Midway, a beautiful little book.
Lovely town of Midway. So I would encourage people to come out to that, which you have done readings there with your Rabbit House Press
Right.
books. And this will
Yeah,
be my first
I
time.
love
So
Ashley Dennington and Annie
yeah,
Dennington, and that's right on the main drag of Midway. And Robby's event is 5:30 to 7
yeah,
this coming Friday night, September 1st.
yeah.
And again, you're at the Carnegie Center. Do you have the date for
Yeah, that is going to be I think in October, and that will be October 12th at the Carnegie Center in the evening. And then I'm doing a reading at the Boyle County Danville Library on the 21st
Great.
of September in the evening.
Which
So,
we should mention your sister, who is a prolific writer.
oh gosh, my sister is, the superior writer in the family, because this is my first
Heather.
book, and Heather Henson, and she's written like 14 or 15. So I'm really going to have to run to catch up, but I don't think I ever will.
But they're an amazing brother and sister team that run the
Yeah.
Pioneer Playhouse and do seasons away, took over for your parents, but your mom is still there doing stuff and playing the piano,
Yeah, playing the guitar.
playing the
She
guitar.
started this summer playing guitar for the guests, but she her movement started getting restricted, and she ended up not doing it toward the end of the summer. But yeah, Pioneer Playhouse has been in Danville presenting plays in the summer for 74 years. And you know
Wow.
the history is, John Travolta came through here, Lee Majors, who Kentuckian, came through here, Jim Varney was here. And then we even have a lot of, actors that are working and doing shows and TV shows that have come through lately. But 74 years is a really long time to
That
run a
is a really long time, and for it to be so successful. And
Yeah, well,
this,
it's I don't know if any theater is like, oh, we're struck lotto by running a theater, but
but you were
we keep
jam-packed
going.
audiences. You keep
Yeah,
going, and the audiences always look full,
yeah,
when I see.
yeah.
Um, And you wrote a play this year to open the season, right?
Yeah, I wrote a very silly comedy called Blood Suede Shoes, a Sergeant Elvis Presley murder mystery, which did really well, mainly because we are aware that Elvis's name in the title kind of helped sell tickets. So the play did
Right,
really
right.
well for us. But it was
That's
a
cool.
spoof send up of, if you could imagine Elvis in an Agatha Christie spoof.
So,
So
and that's how the season started. And then what do
yeah.
you all go from June to
We go from June to August, the end of August. Yes.
August?
Yeah.
I was gonna bring up just another section of I'm trying to think of where um well, I'm gonna leave it to you to do the reading if you want to do another reading, but is there another section that you would like to give us, or do you want me to pick a section?
If you find a section before I do, you could pick it.
Okay.
I should have thought this up, in
I
preparation.
just there's some things that there was a couple things that I just put down because I just was so um one second. Let's see. Um okay, where's this when the brother comes in for the first time? Oh my God.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good sort of a movie tension. It kind
Yeah,
of has the movie tension to it.
got about 15 more minutes, then we've got to try to keep it under a certain amount of time so I can upload it. Where it yeah, clears charcoal sticks to
Yeah, I think I found it. When brother. Uh, yeah, I can sort of do the intro to the brother.
okay, cool.
And this is on page 20, and it happens to be Crit, the main character, has gotten out of prison. He's been paroled to this motel room run by his friend Wild Bill, who, always plays guitar and has stringy long hair. So he's kind of checking into his motel room when his brother shows up. So this is the brother. Um, Crit felt, then heard it. The boom and thrash of thrash metal from subwoofers with the gain turned all the way up. A new Ford F Series with spoked rims and all black metal flake body and cold dark windows eased up the driveway. It was the kind of ride that it's announced itself, that said that the owner had no fear of the law. Crit had guessed who Wild Bill had texted even before the dark window slow rolled half down and there grinned Chrome Popewell with sunglasses and peroxide hair that looked like he had paid somebody good money to cut it. Born 18 months apart and to different fathers, Chrome looked a smug 15 years younger than Crit. Easy. Been a while. The singing in Crit's ears changed to a louder key. My peeps on the inside all told me that you told me to fuck off, Chrome said with a smile and cut his loud music in half. You doing okay? His brother smiled a lot, even when he was about to do someone damage. He always put everything he had into his smiles. Their eyes stayed on each other while Chrome nodded several times as if Crit had answered him. Leave any boyfriends behind?
Oh my God. And he is so creepy. The brother, I could just see the teeth and um, let's talk a little bit more. We've got another, 10 or 15 minutes, 10 minutes about your career, being in what brought you to become a documentarian? Um, first,
Well, and I was a documentarian, but before I started making feature films, I went to Warren Wilson College in Asheville as a undergraduate English major, and I graduated and went immediately. I applied to NYU Film School, and I also, funnily enough, I the only two grad schools I applied to were Berkeley in NYU, and I applied to Berkeley for an MA in English, and they waitlisted me. And I
God.
applied to NYU, and they let me in. So, what are you going to do? Take a wait list or jump on NYU. So, but the Berkeley thing was kind of literary, and it's taken me a long time to get back to there. But
Right.
so I went to NYU, and they taught us, to make fiction films and narrative films. But my last year at NYU, I saw an ad on the bulletin board that said a foundation would give out money to any NYU student making a documentary. So I immediately, and the deadline was like the next day to apply, so I whipped together, pulled it out of my butt, an application to do a documentary about tobacco farmers in Kentucky growing a crop that was supported by the federal government, but of course tobacco kills people. So I just decided to make a documentary about tobacco farmers on a spur of moment's notice, having seen that I could maybe get money for it, and I did get money for it. I got a $7,000 grant. So instead of leaving NYU making a narrative film, I left NYU making a documentary. And then that led me to living in New York and making documentaries, not really making much money, but I did, make like, 5 or 6
Made one
documentaries.
about Spalding Gray, which I
Made
just
one
saw.
about Spalding Gray, yeah, which you are a fan of, and
Mhm.
got to hang out with Spalding up in Boston and shoot that documentary. And I did a documentary that got into Sundance about Corbin, Kentucky, called Trouble Behind, about the 1919 race riot in Corbin.
Oh,
And
wow.
and then I did a documentary about a Civil War raider in Southern Kentucky called, um, gosh, I'm getting old. I can't even remember the titles of my films. Beanie Short. The title was called Blood Memory: The Legend of Beanie Short, and I did that documentary, which was kind of looking at an oral history legend of somebody who had been kind of an outlaw raider in the Turkey Neck Bend area of Southern Kentucky, and it kind of led me to the writings of Harry Caudill, and I wrote. I read Night Comes to the Cumberlands, and saw a couple of story nuggets that gave me the idea for my first feature film, which was Pharaoh's Army. So
Just
my documentary,
beautiful.
I'm sorry.
It's such a beautiful film. I was looking at clips from it today. And I
But
mean, the
again, it was my
cinematography.
documentary work that led me into sort of doing that Pharaoh's Army, all the work I'd done as a documentarian. But then once I was made Pharaoh's Army, which was, the Civil War film with Chris Christopherson and Chris Cooper, it did get me an agent in LA, and boom, I went out to LA right after that. So.
Right. And then how soon after that, what did you do right after Pharaoh's Army?
Well, I, wrote a screenplay for Norman Jewison that never got made, even though, he was behind it all the way. And that was a great experience working with, Norman
Oh
Jewison,
my God.
Academy Award for In the Heat of the Night, and,
Right.
Fiddler on the Roof. And I would go to his house, like in Toronto, and we'd hang out, and like he'd say,
Wait, did
"Oh,
he direct a movie? Did you say he directed the movie Jesus Christ Superstar?
yes, he did."
That is my favorite movie on the
Well, I prefer
planet.
Fiddler on the Roof to Jesus Christ Super. Oh, he's been, the
Well, I
rest of
mean,
the coming,
Jesus,
Moonlighting. He's just done everything.
I mean, Jesus Christ Superstar and Cabaret were my two favorite movies on the planet.
Okay, yeah.
And I didn't really, I mean, I just knew Andrew Lloyd Webber, but I didn't know he directed. That was amazing.
Yeah.
Wait, so you worked with him, and you said, and what were you,
And then Denzel Washington, we were trying to get attached to this movie that I was writing. And then Denzel got cold feet, and the movie that I was writing did not happen once Denzel pulled out. So
right,
but
right.
then very soon after, I had gotten one of my screenplays to a producer, John Morrissey, and he was able to get it to Billy Bob, and then that became The Badge.
Which was
Actually,
great.
the title was a little bit more literary. It was called Behind the Sun. And then there was another movie, and I wanted to do this when the other movie went into production first, with the title Behind the Sun. And
Oh my God. But The Badge, did you write, direct, and edit it?
I did not edit it, even though I
Okay.
was there every day in the editing.
Oh,
But
it was
I
the
did write it.
Pharaoh's
Yeah.
Army that you wrote, direct, and edited.
and edited. Yeah.
And then, but you wrote and directed The Badge.
I did. And it actually it kind of was my influence with working with Norman Jewison, because I was such a big fan of In the Heat of the Night. I remember when I was trying to come up with the story for The Badge, I said, what kind of Southern crime story could I tell now that, it's kind of like In the Heat of the Night, kind of the crime noir Southern,
Hmm.
but resonates today. And of course, The Badge is about the death of a transsexual,
Hmm.
as opposed to In the Heat of the Night was a race issue all the way. And this was
Right.
a bigotry and issue, but it had to do with homophobia, you know?
Right, right, right. And Patricia Arquette, who I love.
Yeah.
Um, and was in that. So, what did you, what happened after that?
Well, then The Badge, did, like, in the film business we talk about, did it hit a home run? Did it hit a triple? Did it hit a double? It sort of hit between, it almost hit a double. So it didn't hit a triple or a home runs. So I did not have a huge amount of momentum going into making my next movies, but I was able to make some low budget thrillers that mainly I was a director, even though I would do the punch up on the script. And those were The Visitation, Three, and House. The last two of those were shot in Poland, so I was able to go, direct movies in Poland and work with a Polish crew, which
Oh,
was kind of a fun
fun.
experience.
Yes,
It's
yes.
and my producer on those three films is a Kentuckian named Joe Goodman, and he kind of likes to keep a low profile. But he was the person who put together the whole Ethan Hawke movie that was shot here in Kentucky.
Oh, with the about Flannery O'Connor or something?
Yeah,
Is
the
it about?
Flannery O'Connor. Yeah, so that was my friend and producer that I did three movies with. That he lives in Louisville, and he put together the whole Flannery O'Connor Ethan Hawke movie that
Wow.
will that is going to open at Toronto. Actually, they're going to do a quick opening at Telluride, and then they're going to open at Toronto, and that means a lot. And
Yes.
Joe has been in this business a long time, and his ship, I think, has finally come in.
Oh,
So
that's so great. That is
yeah.
so great. I was like, I love Flannery O'Connor so much, and I love Ethan Hawke. And I was like, oh my God, they're doing a movie a few minutes. But is it about Flannery O'Connor?
It is, yeah, and actually, it's Ethan Hawke's daughter, who plays Flannery
Right,
O'Connor.
Flannery.
So
Oh, that's what I was thinking of.
yeah, so and Joe said that they kind of had been a little bit of estranged, or had a little bit of father daughter stuff to work out, and
Right.
they kind of worked it out through the making of this movie, and that's
Wow.
a story in itself.
That
A very
is.
esteemed director not really knowing his daughter, and then he has to direct her.
Have you read his novels?
Are you talking about Ethan Hawke's?
Yeah.
No, I have not. Have you?
Oh, yes. And I two of them. The first one, the one, and now I can't even remember. The second one I listened to on Audible about him doing a play. What was now? My brain went, I forgot the name of it. The first book. But I really liked it. Now I can't even
Look,
remember.
I'm curious. I actually I did not get on the set for that, and I didn't pull the friend card and try to, because actually they still like COVID protocols in place. I
Oh,
did try to get my UK class to visit the set of the
oh
film,
yeah.
and then I was told the COVID protocol kind of restricted that.
Oh, really? That was happening recently?
Well, yeah.
The book, oh, I read The Hottest State, which was like his first kind of like romantic. I thought it was really good. And then the book A Bright Ray of Darkness, I listened to him read on Audible, and it was so good. I mean, if you're a theater person, which I was my whole life until
Yeah.
a decade or so ago, it's about an actor, doing going through his own personal problems, but doing I think it was Macbeth on Broadway.
Okay.
And so it's all the characters backstage, and then coming back, and just the feeling of really being able to live when you're on stage, and then just
Right.
fumbling through the hours before you get back on stage for that few minutes of your but it was really
Well,
really
good.
Bright Ray of Darkness. Yeah,
He's the real deal. I'm just so happy for my friend Joe Goodman to
I
have
am
landed.
too. And so
Yeah.
Joe Goodman lives in Louisville,
Louisville, yeah.
and we'll have to all get together and hit the road and do something. No, I'm always wanting to, like, my dream is to get Ethan Muscagni, Evan Muscagni is the one that's directing the documentary that was going to be based on my book that we're doing.
Yeah, and that's it. I don't know if the viewers know that, but you have a book that's coming together that's sort of does some of the overlap with the Bluegrass Conspiracy a little bit.
Well, my uncle was a character in the Bluegrass Conspiracy, a character because they really made him a character. It wasn't the true story. My uncle Bradley Bryant, my mom's younger brother, and he was talking about those years of drug smuggling for the CIA and the Chagras, and who I knew and grew up with in Las Vegas. But all that, Evan Muscagni is a Louisville native that lives in Brooklyn that's moving back to Louisville, but he was telling a story, wanting to tell the story of my uncle. And so we decided to tell the real story, and did interviews and all that's coming together. But anyway, he's been in Brooklyn for a while, and he's moving back to Louisville. So there's so many interesting Kentuckians, again, somebody that left and came back that are doing stuff. And I really do. It is my dream to get in an RV, head across the country. I don't care what story we're telling, but I want to do something. But
Well,
yes.
if you come and stay at our trailer park here in Danville, there's a lot of good drugs, that are in the trailer park.
When we're doing that story. So what is the next? What is the next? Are you going to work on another novel, another documentary?
Yeah, I think so. I kind of tongue in cheek said something to an old friend where I said, it may be that my filmmaking career is, kind of closing down, but my last act of walking into the final sunset may be that I'm trying to write novels, so that's why not? So yeah.
Well, you're amazing at it. And
Well, thank you so much. I didn't know if I could do it. And once you've written the first page, I'm a big fan of writers. Cormac McCarthy, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of all the classic crime novels, Dashiell Hammett and Raymond Chandler, and the way that they work a sentence. And I think with Cormac McCarthy, he kind of writes with, he's a poet, and he tries to hide it in his prose that he's a poet. And I don't know, I tried to do a little bit of, almost a poetic connection to the world, but not, flowery, not flourishing poetic connection, but some kind of hard-bitten poetry,
and you did it beautifully. And of course, I'm not just saying that, but just the way, like, you explain Rennie, right? Rennie,
Yeah.
like when she's coming out and yelling, and when there was something I just remember when she bent her body over, and you were like, just like God cut her poetry her
puppet strings.
Her puppet strings. Just, there's so many like little phrases like that are just like exciting for a writer. And we're at the age where that's that's a great thing to come into later in life, and we can do that into our 80s. That's my
we can do that into our 80s and beyond.
Exactly. I mean, that's how I'm planning on walking into the.
So Erin, we'll look at each other's books. I'm sort of toying around with another novel that's indirectly connected to my grandfather, the son of the woman who killed her neighbor. He became a revenue agent, and he busted stills, and his name was Cruel Daddy.
Ooh.
So I'm working on a work that's right now titled Cruel Daddy.
Oh, cool. And is it going to be a memoir of sorts, a nonfiction?
No, it's a fiction piece, and it's kind of, but it's within that, 20s, 30s, 1920s, 1930s world. So we'll see how. I'm sort of just playing around with that right now.
Well, I love it. Well, everyone, anybody that sat around to listen to us, thank you. And please pick up Loud Water by Robby Henson. Robby, thank you so much. And so I can't wait. We're all going to be there in Midway.
This Friday.
This Friday for your first.
Coming out. It's my very first reading of anything like this, a novel or anything. So yeah.
Congratulations.
Erin, hugs and love to you.
Hugs and love to you. Thank you.
Thank
Talk to
you.
you later.
Bye bye.
Bye.